As I said in the video I released earlier today, promised that I would release all the games from my Gauntlet run this past weekend. We're doing that. That's what this is. This is the rest of the games. So the first 3 videos were me covering each of the individual decks that I had brought over the weekend, and this is the rest of the games. Wins and losses, full transparency. You get to see how it ended, but I wanted to get this out because this was filmed over the weekend, and as we know, there is, patch notes and changes coming, and so the decks that I brought are likely not going to exist, at least in the same way that they do in this video. So in many ways, this is a send-off, right? Like, this is in memoriam of some really busted deck archetypes, because all of the decks that I brought to the Gauntlet were adjusted by the patch notes. So hopefully you enjoy this last look at a bygone era, if you will, and let's start the games. All right, will our luck continue? We're jumping into our 4th game of this Gauntlet run. We've got 3 wins with all 3 of our decks, and this is some hot garbage, gang. I'm not gonna lie. So this is probably concurrent timelines. This is Monofiora that we don't have great matchups for because it's Hush dependent. So this basically has to be our ban. And this is likely Feel the Rush in Targon control, or at least some sort of ramp shenanigans that we don't want to deal with. Now, they probably did this expecting us, if they ban here, to play Fizz TF. This, I think, if it's the deck I'm thinking of, has a really good matchup against us in that regard. So I think we're going to go with our value engine. I don't know. You could argue that there is no good matchup against Fizz TF right now. Like, I would buy that argument, but anytime you see a Freljord control, even if this isn't, Lissandra, you still have to look at this and think, okay, they're going to be running Avalanche, Ravine, all of those annoying cards. And so this is our deck that has the best opportunity for what I call vertical threats. So you get 1 or 2 big units and you kind of stack on that, as opposed to going wide. That's what Fizz TF does well. And this is a deck that does much better against going wide. But the reality is that all of the decks our opponent brought are really good against our lineup. This is an opponent that I dig what they have done for playing into the meta, and we have a very slow start because we are not doing anything until round 4. I take it back. We are going to copy Weirding Stones so that we can play Vi and crash into this, because I expect a Trundle from them. Oh, this is just straight up Targon's Peak. Okay, that is indeed a problem for us, because I am not sure, depending on what they hit with this, and let's be honest, they're going to hit something insane. I am not sure that we can keep up with this. Us getting Temple there is actually a pretty big deal. That's the best card that we could have hit. So now we just need them to have low rolled, and we might have hope. This makes a lot more sense now. It's been a while since I've played against Targon's Peak, and it's usually on the ladder. I don't traditionally anticipate it in like the tournament style setting, so you'll have to forgive my confusion for not realizing this was Targon's Peak. I have seen some Feel the Rush variants pop up. We can cycle this for free to trigger Temple and see if we find something else like an iterative, which is kind of cheeky. Not that I want to copy a Stones, but it triggers another Temple and it gets her very large to the point of leveling, while we can create some chump blockers and push some extra damage. And we'd still take our full spell mana, or we could just Mystic Shot their Nexus, because it's not like Mystic Shot's going to do us a whole lot of good here. I think I'd rather do that and save this for one of their big bombs. But we just want to get Vi large. Now we have to assume this is a list that runs plenty of Frostbite effects. which makes me wonder if we want to preemptively hit this bastion. I think the answer is yes. So they have to pop more than one, but the goal here is to level her. Not only do they have frostbite effects, but they also have access to Hush. And so the faster we level her so that Hush doesn't take her below that 10 attack power, the better off we are. But leveling her gives us access to win conditions. Now, I made a mistake. I forgot to swing with the stones here. So we'll see if that 1 damage ends up mattering, but... kind of want to dig deeper, but the Crescent Strike could save us at some point, though they haven't dropped any big bombs yet, so we're going to be greedy and just go deeper into our deck. So there's the big bomb that we were eventually worried about. I think he traditionally costs 8, so we actually could iterative that if we really wanted to. But for now, I think we'll hold tight. Because I'm waiting for the inevitable wandering monster. So, yeah, I was going to say, right now they can't even pull my Vi, even without the buffs. So they're going to do this, I think, so that Trundle, because Trundle's going to have, you know, like all of the tools, right? And we have to know that's coming. At this point, let's overwrite the dog. There we go. Comet is exactly what we were hoping to find. Now I expect them to attack here and not keep playing things, but... so if we play a spell now, she gets the +2/+2. They're trying to force it. So we just now have to decide, is this iterative worthy or not? And I think the answer is yes. So let's just do it so that we get our mana back at least this round. Try to use Comet on Trundle, because again, you have to assume with the Behold, Trundle would have been big enough.
Run! Crack ice and flesh! This Trollland!
You know, there's an argument to be made about maybe we were supposed to actually do it to this. Because then next round we could like drop Uzgar and do some cheeky things there as well, but... Hush is not bad. At the moment, we're just kind of hoping for something along the lines of like an Aphelios to give her Overwhelm. Because this hit 0 again, we're fine with starting with this because we have the 0 cost trigger to further try to save her. I mean, at some point we want to take this Invoke anyway. So we can try to get rid of these this way, though I'm honestly kind of inclined to flip these, because we actually might bait more combat tricks out of them doing it this way. The only reason that you kind of want to eat this with a Vi is because she already has the Bastion on them, so it makes hushing her more difficult.
Let's get to the fun part.
But there's also kind of no reason to put her in danger at the moment, though we do have a backup. Yeah, we'll go this way. So here's Harsh Winds number 1.
Face meet fist. Get wrecked.
So we get some of that damage in. And again, we have the star shaping for her, which we will absolutely be utilizing while it's free here. They are going to use their own star shaping to invoke as well, which is problematic because they could be trying to find something like a supernova would be really bad for us. Inspiration is tempting, but we're going to take the Immortal Fire here. Because if they grabbed something like Great Beyond, for example, we need to have a way to deal with it. I mean, we have Hush, but it's going to have Spell Shield. I guess theoretically we could also go with the Mystic Shot there. We just want to properly play to our outs. So, speak of the devil. There's their Great Beyond. There's our potential answer, though again, they can maybe do some shenanigans. Like pull it with an Uzgar. And so for now, I think we pass and we wait and see how they do this. I expect this to get pulled by Uzgar. Ooh. Okay. That was rather interesting. I don't know. I'm a bit puzzled. I know I don't have the camera on for these recordings, but if you could see my face, you would understand that I am a wee bit puzzled. So we finally found an Aphelios. We still have to worry about Hush because we haven't seen any from them yet, which is the problem because we'd love to give her Overwhelm. But in this instance, I think what we want to do is just try
and flesh.
Here's the fun part. Freeze. My spirit shines.
to push damage like so. Kind of don't think we want to send this though.
Witness glory.
And so I think this is the way that we want to do it for now. Because at the moment we're just trying to jockey for position. So they used another Harsh Winds. We theoretically could just pump this thing up with our Vi. I think I want to do it, gang. Just to see if they've got something else up their sleeve, because if we can get rid of this, that's a pretty big deal. Like, I know this is a lot of mana, but they don't have a lot of cards left, so I think we could do that. And we could also still deal 5 to the Nexus if we really wanted to Pale Cascade here. But since it's not going to kill this, I think that's fine. We just really want to get rid of their bombs. So there's Feel the Rush. It's all the more reason why I'm glad we did what we did, because it's going to be Trundle and Aurelian Soul now. Or excuse me, yeah, Aurelian Soul. 2 cards left. I think you take the Gravitum here just because we are able to potentially punish them if they go with something not an open attack, right?
My, how they stare. I'm gonna make a U-sickle.
So we go ahead and do something like this, and then we want Infernum for maybe coming back in the other direction.
Charge on, my horned fellow.
Ooh, that is not great for us in the least bit, and we have no good way to stop it. I mean, we could take a Mystic Shot here. I think we actually have to. Aurelian Soul, the problem is Aurelian Soul is going to level up and there's like nothing we can do about it, but this helps us mitigate some of the problems that creates. Oh, I thought for some reason they still had one other Celestial in hand, so that actually shut that down. I thought they still had one left. All right, so they take a Skies Descend, which is fine. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, how can that be fine? But we've got Immortal Fire still. We've got another Vi we can play. Oh, that's right. Our Immortal Fire already died once, didn't it? How do we want to handle this? Because we could dig for a Bastion if we really wanted to. I think we just let this go. I think we just let it go.
Here comes the punchline.
Develop our Vi. I mean, they seem pretty proud of themselves, but the problem is we have to get rid of Aurelian Soul because they're just continuing to get cards here, but we also really need to deal with the Trundle, and we don't have a good way to deal with the Trundle at the moment because we don't have another big body that we can block Trundle and Hush. Well, of course they top decked Harsh Winds. Why wouldn't they? Let's see if we can find anything. Get her up to 4 attack power. But we need to get to 6. We get her up to 4 to nuke this, I guess. But again, these pillars are also problematic because they're going to pull away my blockers so they can swing with these. Now again, we can still hush this, but then we don't have a way to kill it. So I think we just keep digging at the moment.
Once I stamp papers, now faces.
But they're just going to continue to generate value off of Aurelian Soul here.
Come on in. Can you improve perfection?
So if I can get rid of something like Traveler,
I am the
you can get some damage on this. Could play this for 0 reason if I really wanted to get this down to 3, but the important thing is we're at least not dead, but it's not looking great because we still have to deal with Aurelian Soul somehow, some way.
Why, how they stare.
And for whatever reason, they just keep getting lucky and pulling things that allow them to keep invoking, so we'll just keep doing the same thing. Supernova has a lot of potential. Had a lot of potential. So we can stop the Trundle. And still block the Aurelian Soul. But Supernova was supposed to be our way to deal with Aurelian, so... Aye, aye, aye. So if we do this, we slow them down at least. Again, it's such a shame that we don't have a way to pop the spell shield.
Can you improve perfection? System upgrade.
Of course, it's our ignition that gets hit by the Targon's Peak, right? I think we have to try to get rid of Aurelian Soul. The problem is they probably just have another one, right? +1/+1 is 8, 9. So we don't have a way to keep our Vi alive in either direction. So
Justice firsthand. Trouble coming at ya.
Destiny awaits.
I think you go with something like this. But like I said, I also just kind of fully expect them to just drop another Aurelian Soul here. Crescent Strike helps us pop the shield, which is really important if we want to be able to hush and block that, or we could have just played Trickster, but we don't have any way to keep them going, so Meteor is gonna do Meteor things. This is free, so we might as well take it. And we have to do this now to pop the shield. So then we play Vi, and then you pray. Because they could have something like Supernova or whatever. I mean, this is also annoying.
I'll protect you.
So again, here we could get her health up to 7, which is not enough, but we don't have a way to deal with that this round. So
Hit 'em where it eats this.
you have to do this.
Another obstacle.
I think our biggest issue is that we've only seen the one Aphelios. We're way deep into our deck. We've only seen the one Aphelios, but the one, I guess, benefit is that they've only seen the one Aurelion Soul and one Field of Rush. So for all of the bad luck we've had, they have equally had it.
System upgrade. Join me if you want to live.
So if we use the pedal, that goes there. I think we just end here. They want to end. I think we want to end. So the question now is, do we give them the opportunity to drop something big on us? I think we still keep slow playing and pinging. So they're gonna roll through healing. There's also still a star shaping in there. I mean, they're deep in their deck, we're deep in our deck. I just need them to not have defensive answers. Naturally, they have defensive answers so that they can drop Aurelion Soul this next round. They're like, there's no way they haven't found it by now, right?
Lunari, rise.
Just get chip damage in. I mean, we probably should be cycling ourselves, but... So this is going to be a roar on a soul, and there is nothing we can do about it. Oh, this is such a tough call. I think it's got to be Great Beyond here. Although we could play Fire this turn to set us up for an open attack. So maybe it's Fire instead. Fire can also trade with an Aurelion Soul. Because they're going to be going up to 17, but we should be able to hit them with some hefty pressure. This is a bit of a knockdown, drag out fight. Hey, look! It's an Aurelion Soul. We'll play this because we want this to get the buff from the temple. We know that Soul is coming. We just really need them to not hit
Let's rock.
obliterate effects because we do not have the Bastion.
Fire if nothing moves.
Oh, good lord.
Magnum opus.
I mean, at least we have a blocker. So Aurelion Soul levels up for them.
My creation.
They just pass. So the blocker part actually ends up being a bit moot.
Safety disengaged. Now they'll pay attention.
These are both naturally 0 help. Or are they? Oh, of course it's an Immortal Fire. I was just thinking to myself, all right, well, we can use this to pull away their elusive unit. But it turns out we actually can't, so I guess we do this. We're at 11 cards to our 12. I don't think Bastion is the help we need it to be either. All right, so we have to do this because we need to get rid of their Great Beyond, right? So what we have to do is we have to sacrifice this to get rid of their Great Beyond. Pray that whatever they get off of Aurelion Soul to start next round is useless. But this is the way that we have to do it, just so that we can get rid of their Great Beyond and make our Immortals potentially trade. You take this poke as well because you want this to slowly grow. Maybe we can kill Aurelion Soul that way at some point. That's a big maybe. Oh my lord. I mean, ultimately, I think we just lose this because they've got Aurelion Soul and we just never found our affiliates. I mean, we did, but it's been kind of AWOL. Well, that's not very nice.
Temperamental as the moonlight.
There's an Aphelios when we are finally about to lose our temple. And so this is an easy Gravitum pick, which means that they, at this point, like, have to go into the attack. And I think we just let it through. We're not worried about them burning us. I think you just let it through and try to take the open attack. Well, they snap picked something. So again, oh, it's just a destroyer, I say. Like, it's not horrific for us, but they had a 0 cost living Legends that entire time. So I think this is now just over. Because they'll for sure have blockers now. Or they'll just have a comet. I mean, we can keep praying here, but they've got so many cards. We might as well make them go through the motions. Another inspiration. Meteor. They're gonna do this and then still nuke our stuff. Yep, cosmic rays. I mean, we don't actually have a win here. Wow, that sucks that they couldn't make another elusive. There it is. I was gonna say we don't actually have a win here. I think should still have one Hush left.
Now they'll pay attention.
8 cards left. This is so frustrating to lose in this fashion, and of course they found a comet off of this, right? Like all of the answers they possibly could, and we just never found a Phelios until it was too late. All of those times we had Vi on the board and no way to give her Overwhelm is so sad. 8 cards left. Rest in pepperonis. I mean, I guess it's my fault for not realizing this was Targon's Peak, but you know, Targon's Peak gonna do what Targon's Peak does. All right, we've lost one now, so we have to hope we can turn this around, or this run is going to be over. So our run is now on the line because of Targon's Peak, which is not something you ever want to say out loud. It's incredibly frustrating. I'm not sure that I would have done anything different. Having had some time to think about that last game, I think that our ban was still correct. I think we picked the right deck for that matchup. We just didn't draw what we needed. They had the stones into peak on 5, so they had their almost ideal start to begin with. But we did a great job of combating that deck despite the kind of insane value they have. We battled through the Field of Rush. We even killed one Aurelion Soul. We just couldn't stop the second one. It just came down to our deck's main engine. Like, I like to play this list because it's a Vi list, but our deck's main engine is really Aphelios and Temple. And we just were unable to get there. Okay, so this is not a standard tournament lineup, and I kind of don't know what to ban, just flat out. So this looks like Ephemeral Insanity. I think the safe choice is to just ban the Targon list, get rid of the Nightfall. They took away our fun, so I think we just go with the busted list and hope that it's enough to carry us here. I'm a bit concerned though. These are some non-traditional lists, and since we just lost to Targon's Peak, it's gonna be really rough if we end up losing 2 in a row to the non-meta stuff. But sometimes that happens. I mean, this is a card game. You can brick 2 times in a row. This is the list I expected to run into, which is why I was considering going the other route. I like the Fizz. I like the bot. I think we throw these back, maybe try to find like a Poro Cannon. I don't know, maybe you could have kept Mystic Shot, play Fizz, Mystic Shot something early. It has the elusive, yada yada, but we got one anyway. So we don't have to worry about playing something for the elusive. If they don't have a 1-drop, we can just take our poke and go from there. Get our chip damage in. Since this is Demacia Noxus, they shouldn't have access to too much healing. So every little bit of damage helps. And so the interesting dilemma we have now is if they pass here, do we develop our bots? Because we don't have the Poro Cannon to protect Fizz. But the reality is I think you do, because we would need to play 2 spells.
Humanity is obsolete.
To truly stop this. So I think you just get the bot going. Try to bank spell mana from there. I think this is going to be a beefy mid-range list, and so the more early game pressure that we can toss, I think the better off we will be. Oh yeah, it looks like it's going to be elite shenanigans. I think we start with this.
Join me if you want to live.
I'll write my own
Oh, interesting. I was not expecting the Cythria. I was gonna Mystic Shot that after the fact, but turns out I was supposed to have done it already. So I think we're just gonna pass and take this 3.
Safety disengaged.
And we're gonna start by trying to nuke this. Now again, they probably have some sort of combat trick here to protect it, but we at least force them to use it. The big thing is this will give this elusive, so we can go with Fizz into Zap, get some chip damage in, maybe even go with the ignition. Sharp Sight, not what we wanted to see, just because that means not only does this survive, but it blocks now. I think we still develop our Zap here, but
Hey, Zap. The hand? Can't say no to Fizz.
I suppose the real question now... Oh, interesting. So they're going to stun that. The real question is, do we still attack with the Fizz? Like, are we okay with that trade?
Rise, metal brethren.
We can use Get Excited off of the ignition to nuke this next round, but we'd like to get rid of this. It could have another combat trick, but then that would be 2 down. But I honestly think that I want to get rid of this here, if they let me. We don't need to keep the Fizz alive. That's not mandatory this early on. Twisted Fate is a good pickup, though we don't have great ways to level him at the moment.
A real battle.
So we take our shot. They have 8 mana though, so they could absolutely have something here. The one downside to doing something like this is if they've got some big power plays, we lose our ability to stop things with a Twisted Fate. I was saving this iterative for Burble, but I kind of think I want to do this now.
So soon.
Primed and ready.
Gotta go with the flow.
So we'll go with a Zap here. All right, so now that we have a Rummage, not this round, but probably next round, we'll look to develop Twisted Fate. This round, I just want to try to push a bunch of elusive damage. So we can play Fizz into Ignition, which levels Fizz and makes Burble free.
Oh boy, here I go.
The fact that they're not playing anything is actually a bit concerning. Now we can keep Fizz alive with a Poro Cannon here as well. It means giving up the Mind Meld, which is kind of sad, but I think long term worth it. So Fizz levels up.
Only the
Oh, this is why they weren't playing anything. But now they've reached the point where they're like, okay. So we'll take our 9 damage. We also get the Chum the Waters here.
Safety disengaged.
We'll probably end up pitching this Death Ray to the Rummage as well. We'll go ahead and try developing our Twisted Fate into the blue card like we had talked about.
Blue as the serpentine.
All right, since they passed, we're actually just going to take this pass because what we can do to start this turn is kind of silly. Even more so with something like a Suit Up. So we're going to ship it all.
Let's see.
Now they could be running something like a Judgment. Yep, okay. Now the question becomes, how do we want to deal with it? We're going to start by discarding this and our Ignition, just to see what we end up with. That's 2 iteratives, not enough to push him further. And so the question then is, we could go with a Fizz's Playful Trickster to save something. And so we're gonna copy a Burble. We're going to copy a Burble. Go with a Playful Trickster. Now they could try, if they have the mana, to like single combat here to stop that, but we have the Poro Cannon. And so we should still have a victory. So, you know, we lose the board. So there, yep, there's the single combat. And that should be it. We should have saved our Gauntlet run here. Because with 1 mana, they do not have the ability to stop this. And this is why this deck is busted.
Reporting in.
All right. Our Gauntlet run is still alive. Whew. If I had lost after Targon's Peak, I would have been upset. Time to jump into another game as we try to work our way through this Gauntlet. 3 wins remaining to try to get that elusive Prime Glory. And here we have a rather interesting dilemma, because the Trundle Lysandra list here is annoying to deal with, but it's, I think, the less annoying of the two. So in this case, I actually think we're just going to ban this Targon list. I don't think we want to deal with this. Now with Tia Fizz gone, I find that also to be rather interesting, because I don't think this Trundle list wants to deal with either mid-range list, but perhaps they know that they have to deal with one no matter what. I expect them to play this list though. We're going to go ahead and play Fiora Shen here. On the off chance they do play the Azir Hecarim, Fiora Shen gives us some pretty solid anti-aggro tools, but I called it. We are going to be playing against this list, and I think this is fine. I'd love to have a Fiora here, but the reality is that like River Shaper actually might be more important. But we'll go ahead and keep this. The one downside is that obviously this is going to be a list that's running avalanches and ravines and ice shards and the whole 9. So they're going to have a lot of ways to ping through our barriers and the like. But as long as we can keep some solid pressure, we might be okay. This is also a list that might be running something like Concussive Palm and other tools, but if we can get some really pressure going, we might be okay. So this is an avalanche potential turn. They go with a Lysandra instead. This, because it's the Ionia version, they are a bit more in need of trying to get her down early. But I think we just try to pass and bank our own spell mana here. The Lysandra, they need to start getting these thralls ticking because they don't have the ability to use memories like the Shadow Isles version on Pillar. So they rely on bouncing Pillar back to their hand one way or the other, as well as trying to get some of these to trigger. So we should also expect things like Draculorn in this list. Really curious about what they would possibly be considering here with this 3 mana. I mean, maybe it's an Ice Shard because they're on multiples and they want to get one in to set up one next round, but like you could still just pass and take that mana. I'd love to get this going. But that's not necessarily great for us. So we could also go with something like Caretaker here if we wanted to be super greedy, but then we fall prey to an avalanche. So I think in this instance we just take the open attack, fully expecting them to block with this Lysandra. Depending on which unit they block, we have a number of combat tricks here, but we want to take the open attack so that they can't answer with an avalanche. Now again, the reason that you would have maybe considered Caretaker is because if they don't have an avalanche, playing a Caretaker and then hitting a target with Spirit's Refuge means they both get buffed. You also have enough mana for Caretaker, Refuge, and then either single combat or sharp sight. So a lot of flexibility there, but the reality is you just don't want to give them the opportunity to play the avalanche. So I like generating pressure here. And so they're going this route, likely expecting some kind of barrier play. And then because they've been pausing, if we go with the barrier option, they could turn around and try to hit us with an Ice Shard, which would pop our barrier. So I feel like we almost want to preempt that with something like Sharp Sight. However, Sharp Sight might be used for lethal later. This is not an easy decision. I think we're going to go with the Sharp Sight version. I mean, obviously we have the room for both, but this is mostly a matter of preference at the moment. One of the reasons that you consider going with the Sharp Sight as well is if they do something here, like a Palm, for example, then we can still, if we want to, and I think we do want to, choose to single combat this. Because they're trying to save this Lysandra. And we want to get rid of it because if they have a second Lysandra in hand, for example, then currently that is like an entomb that we don't want to deal with potentially. But it also just gets rid of a blocker, and we already used the +2/+2, so we might as well try to get some sort of benefit from that. The danger of a play like this is, again, we don't have a River Shaper, and that's our primary source of card draw. We do have our friend Laurent, but all right, so they also have the Tavern Keeper. I think we just pass and bank the full spell mana here. Protege is not a bad pickup because of the high health total. The biggest issue we have right now is that I think this is a very winnable matchup for us. I think it's a decent matchup, but we haven't drawn our key units. We'd love to have Shen here. We'd love to have like Screeching Dragon on 5. We want the things that have high health totals. And instead we have all of our units, you know, with the exception of Protege here, it's all of our units that have 2 health. And when you are expecting the inevitable either Avalanche or Ravine, it's problematic. Ravine is actually extra problematic because at least Avalanche, you know, we can defend against that with something like a barrier while it's waiting to resolve, but a Ravine, that triggers like right at the start of the turn and you don't have a chance to respond, so you can't use combat tricks to save these units. And so that then becomes the problem, right? Because like we'd love to develop Laurent. So that we can use him next round and draw yet another. I think we're going to go ahead and instead go with the other one. This is the fancy one. We'll just go with the plain Protege. It's kind of funny to me that, you know, this one is a 3-2 and this is the Protege. So this is interesting because this tells me they might be trying to play a Ravine or something in that regard. If they're doing this, then they want me to, for example, potentially take this block. Oh, I might be wrong. What are they doing here? What is this? Interesting. This is so interesting because this is going to be stunned and they'll have another one, but this will be able to drag it on the open attack next round anyway. And so if we do something like this, which should be safe with them only having 1 mana, we clear up blockers and then set ourselves up to maybe get 5 damage in with an open attack. Which, you know, at some point, again, we want to get this rolling. But 5 damage is 5 damage. Just so weird that they decided to try to stun this. To protect units. I mean, I know that they don't want the value trade, but we just take this and, like I said, try to push our damage. We could also develop this, but we're not generating any barriers and we need to have bodies post Avalanche if they play it, because again, our card pool is dwindling. Sadly. And our opponent is proving to be pretty thorough. They're using most of their turn clock, but that is important in these kinds of environments. I think that it is usually the right thing to do, just to make sure that you're dotting your T's, crossing your I's, etc., etc. So we finally found a River Shaper with no good way to protect it, but we did finally find a River Shaper. So again, we'd love to develop. If we had another barrier, I would actually play the River Shaper into a potential Avalanche, even though we'd be sacrificing the damage. I would do that to try to get things rolling, but since we don't have a way to protect this and it opens us up to just really having a bad time, I'm not a fan of that play. This is getting dangerously close to Draklorn territory. So as this gets lower, it's entirely possible that they just drop a Draklorn trying to sneak one in on us. So we also kind of owe it to ourselves to keep enough mana up for a Concerted Strike answer, because right now anyway, if they play a Draklorn, they wouldn't have enough for a deny. All right, so we could actually go with a Concerted Strike here if we wanted to push the damage, stop this homecoming, which is relevant because that not only pushes damage, but it means they don't have access to this stun. But it does get rid of our tool for dealing with a Draklorn, but I think we just have to trust the process. They're below deny mana, so this should be relatively safe. Now they could pull this back still with something like retreat return. But even if they do that, that should still mean we push the damage. So we get our damage in. That's 2 of the concussive palm units that are down as far as the stall tools go. But our hand is still not looking great. Our hand is still pretty clunky. We're missing a few tools here. We'd love to find maybe even something like a Bright Steel to play on curve when we get to the end. We have to worry about them popping their combo. We finally find our Shen. So that is very relevant. But again, we don't have a way to keep this alive, sadly. But Shen is very threatening with a Caretaker. So I would expect if we play Shen for that to bait out some kind of removal, some form of chicanery. So we'll wait and see. We do develop, I think, the Shen here and then nothing else. Like if they pass, I think you still play the Shen. And then I expect them to do something. And then depending on what they do, we probably develop something like River Shaper. But we definitely want this Shen to go into this open attack next round. All right, so there's an ice shard. Here's a second ice shard. So now's where we play the numbers game. So they still have enough for an avalanche, but we play a River Shaper just to force it because we really want this River Shaper to connect next round. We had actually would prefer to have developed this, but we don't have the mana. But this is a, you know, do you have it? You've played 2 ice shards. Are you also sitting on the avalanche? Because if not, we would very much like to push some damage this next round and draw a card. Now, of course, I say avalanche, but it could also very well just be a ravine here as well. And we will move on. So this is enough to at least threaten lethal, but they've got a lot of mana and 5 cards. So if they have anything that stops us, we just really want this to connect because we got to refuel our hand a bit here. But ideally, by going with the open attack, this hopefully means at least something connects here. Okay, so they have a flash freeze and they go with the Shen. We're fine with that. We wanted the River Shaper to connect more than anything. Obviously, flash freezing this saves health, but I think this was actually the bigger threat. It's an interesting debate. I don't know what the rest of their hand looks like, but only a couple units in our hand, so I think we just play it safe for the rest of this. Our opponent's at least struggling at the moment to find what they need. We've already killed 1 Lysandra. They have not yet found a Trundle. I think that's a big part of their struggles thus far. But we're trying to carry enough forward momentum to finish this off if possible. Because they still need this to pop. They could do that with something like a Draklorn. They still need likely to get Trundle down so that they can run the combo, and then they also need the Lysandra. This is actually kind of a nice pickup. This is the kind of insurance we were looking for keeping our board alive. Actually, because we picked up this, well, I was about to say we might get ballsy with the Laurent here, but I think instead we just deny this because I do not want to lose my board and also have them nuke this here. Now this is what, a deny in response? All right. So that is disheartening, but not the end of the world because this survives and we can still redevelop afterwards and try to go for the open attack. The only real question you have here is whether or not you want to cycle a spell on this River Shaper, because we could still develop both of these but also use single combat on a River Shaper to maybe find something else. But I think we're, yeah, I actually think that we do want to take this. The spell mana is important, but not necessarily
What form will the waters take?
ridiculously important, and the more spells we got out of the way, the more likely we are to draw units. And at the moment here, we just really want to draw units, and with them being out of mana, we'll be able to, like, we're gonna take the 8 here, we just let that happen. We have this to gain health back if we really need it, but we just want to threaten lethal here. We got the Fiora, which is nice, but we just do it like this. So we have 2 units threatening 3, and we get it done. Okay, so there's another win down. Our gauntlet run continues. We'll see how this goes. The hunt for the prime glory moves on. We're gonna go ahead and jump into a game and hope for a win, because that will take us to the boss battle. And I think that's the real, like, testament of a lineup, personally. I'll talk a bit about that in a minute. So interesting, we have a Mono Shurima list. This is very clearly trying to restore the Sun Disc. We have a rather interesting Freljord Talia list, which looks insane. And then we have Zoe shenanigans. I think here we just ban the Targon. I'm a bit concerned about this. I think this is what we'll end up playing against in all likelihood. But once we have our deck chosen, as we jump in, I'll kind of talk about what I mean here. Interesting. I really want to jam TF Fizz here, like I desperately do, but seeing this along with Freljord means I think you almost have to play this, because you have to assume this is going to have like Avalanche, Blighted Ravine, whatever. And if we play this, it's gonna, I think, potentially be bad. But to finish that train of thought, oh, I was wrong, dang it. TF Fizz would have been amazing against the Sun Disc list. All right, finally gonna finish that train of thought that I keep saying I'm going to finish, and then I'm not. I don't know, I kind of want to keep it Aegis here. I mean, Deny's not half bad either, but I kind of want to keep the Aegis. We're going to be really ballsy and keep this Aegis just because of the matchup we're in. If you can get to the boss battle in Gauntlets, I think that that is a decent testament in favor of your lineup, because one game deciding your entire run is a bit harsh, right? So like win or lose, sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles, as they say.
These woods protect their own.
So they're going to do the predict thing. With the exception of not drawing this last turn, which would have been ideal, the rest of our hand is okay-ish. Nopify I actually think is a dead card here, unfortunately, but the rest is fine as far as kind of playing stuff on curve. We might eat 2 here if they decide to take this open attack.
Not see what is, see what will be.
Nature blesses her followers.
So we stalled them. That's good for us. We can bank our spell mana, go into a Shen. Now we have double Aegis. So like post Screeching Dragon, depending on what the board is like, there's a strong chance that this double Aegis hand could be enough to just push us hard in the direction we want to go. Not only because of the rally, but because it helps out our Shen, and we found a Shen, so maybe our risk will pay off.
Together we are part of something more. Together you are children of Shurima.
So I go.
So I think I'll say this is a bit interesting. I think we just send this. It's mono Shurima with 3, so I don't think that they have anything super punishing. Like they could have quicksand, but if they do that, then we can at least take Azir with us, right? Because quicksand would remove the barrier.
Spears ready. In Shurima's name,
The reality is we actually might even take this single combat.
you would give me the allegiance of your city.
You have given us something to believe.
We might take it now so that we don't get the Azir trigger next round when they decide to attack. I think that this is a worthy use of this. Banking the spell mana is nice and all, but I think that this is a much better use. So now we have a decision this next round, because Screeching Dragon is obviously the bigger body and we're not likely to win with Fiora, but Fiora would let us bank more spell mana so that we could potentially do a double rally as opposed to a single one with a dragon. But dragon trades better with something like this. So I think we're gonna go with the dragon. We also,
Who's with me?
oh wow, I am shocked by this. All right, so it's entirely possible we're gonna eat the shaped stone. I realized it a bit too late. Should have blocked the 3-2 so that it was still an even trade. All right, so that changes things a wee bit.
They would fall by
Guess we go with the Fiora, and unfortunately Shen might be fighting it here. I don't know. We actually might just Fiora twice. I think it's going to depend on what happens here. Specifically with our Fiora attack. So that is a big crocodile. That is not something that you want to run into by any stretch of the imagination.
honor guide me.
Now, if we do this, I firmly expect Renekton to block this, but assuming Fiora survives, then we would just be using her to crash into this Renekton on the following attack.
Some help, please?
They did, in fact, have another shaped stone, huh? Oof. The first one's so frustrating because we needed to get rid of that extra unit. Like, this one is fine. We would have had to make this attack either way, but...
Everything I've worked for.
I think we gotta chip away at this board a bit. So even though Renekton is likely going to stay alive because they're going to want to charge into something this next round, I think that
Nature blesses her
I think that you do this. I mean, I fully expect us to eat an exhaust here
Nature blesses her followers.
this next round, but we have to do something. And if they don't take the open attack, then we can actually level our Shen. But I expect for Shen to eat it. Interesting. We can't notify this, and this is one of the few like non-burst spells that they run, but
You're covered.
Our wills align.
We live in hallowed times.
so they're out of mana, so we can safely develop this.
Swim within the flows of magic. Rivers shape the land and give it life.
Oh, this is super risky. We need to draw cards off these river shapers.
This curse and life is now my penance.
We also cannot notify this, which is problematic. They have exactly 4. So our goal was we wanted to swing with these and then barrier Shen to re-swing.
As it had to be.
But unfortunately, we are hitting the point of the game where we are just running out of resources, and so we
Drowning our tears.
need to get something going here. Kind of have to cycle a river shaper, sadly, and deny. Oh, we have like 3 dead cards in the entire deck, and we're sitting on them at the moment. And we get punished pretty hard by an exhaust or anything else. At least this stops skills, but things are not looking good at the moment. Pretty severe lack of units at the moment is a problem, so I guess we do this.
Let's hear it.
Currents pull them down.
I'm not sure that we can actually stop enough damage here,
Strike.
because this is exactly 17 and we can stop this and then hit this with a concerted.
Currents pull
We're
them
here
down.
and we concerted this. This is still enough. If we're here, we block 2, 4, which is not as much as 7. So I think that this is just it on a bit of a bricked hand. I guess that's my fault for the Aegis. Sometimes you make the wrong call. I wasn't expecting to find a second Aegis, and I was not expecting to run into the dead cards, but that's a bummer. We lost a Mono Shurima. We just couldn't find units. Our run is officially in jeopardy once again. So I'll have to make a much better series of decisions this next time around. But we can at least enjoy some animations here in this loss, because we get the full cinematic experience. Nasus levels up, Renekton levels up, Sundisk restores, and then they both go to level 3, and they're just good, so it's worth it. I will happily lose to show off some really cool effects here. But moving on to the next one. Once again, our run is in jeopardy, and once again, it's after running into a non-meta list. So we're gonna jump into a game, but Mono Shurima and Targon's Peak are the 2 losses that we have, and of course now we just get nothing but non-traditional lists. Again, I think you just don't want to deal with Targon here, though this one is actually kind of tempting to get rid of as well. I take it back. We're going to get rid of the Freljord list. So now we have to decide, do we want to go with the Twisted Fate Fizz? I think so. I think we're just going to do it. I'm a bit worried they're going to play whatever the Sivir list is, because I think that has the potential to ping some of our units. Yep, that's fully what I was expecting, and I thought Targon was a good matchup there. But then I second guessed myself, because this last round, the one where we lost, my entire concern really was that I didn't expect them to play the Mono Shurima list, so I didn't pick Fizz and Twisted Fate, and then that's exactly what we ran into, and this would have been a much better list in that matchup. So unfortunate, but we're gonna get a battle of bots going early.
System upgrade.
Yeah, I think we'll go with the ignition for now, and I expect them to likely do the same. Oh, they just flat out have a gotcha, huh? I don't think this is really iterative improvement worthy, but the rest of our hand is a bit clunky. But we'll let it go. So our biggest concern is that we want to be able to play Twisted Fate and use the other one for pick a card, but we're against a deck that has, you know, access to Mystic Shot, let alone some of these other options, like apparently a gotcha, get excited, certainly a possibility as well. So we could like double Mystic Shot this if we really wanted to stop this damage, but ideally I want them, I was going to say, to actually spend some mana here. So now we will happily go Twisted Fate, blue card, pick a card. We've already got a rummage. I think here we're going to shuffle back the iterative. Ooh, we actually don't even have to use our backup Twisted Fate here. We can just use a natural pick a card. And then just pray that we run into either another rummage or a stress testing or something, so that and there we go. So we can level up our Twisted Fate here. Let's go with a rummage into this stress testing and I guess the bot. So yeah, I think we'll just do this. I was thinking about actually popping this other stress testing as well, but I want to save that for later, I think. So this will get our Twisted Fate leveled up.
I guess you can win them all.
And we have a backup Twisted Fate, so that's also rather nice. Now we can... We want to play at least 3 spells here, if possible. But I think we're only going to get to 2. So we can do Mystic Shot, but we'll get the blue card. Takes us back to 3 mana. A second Mystic Shot would be the second. Stress Testing's third. The reason we want to do this is not only because of the cards, but because we want to get to where we can at least play this Burble Fish, depending on how their mana gets spent. Depending on how their mana gets spent. Oh, shoot. I'm an idiot. This was supposed to go here, and I was talking, and I wasn't paying attention. This is why I... Normally, when I do my gauntlets, I don't stream them, in case you're ever wondering. It's just not something that I do. And that means that we're going to just pop this to save that Burble, because... Unfortunately now... That Mystic Shot fizzled, and a fizzled Mystic Shot. I expect them to nuke this, yeah. But we have the backup. So this went horribly because this was supposed to also be Burbles swinging. So we just missed out on likely 6 damage here, which is frustrating. But I was about to say, when I'm doing my Gauntlet stuff, I don't usually stream them for reasons exactly like this. We could actually just double get excited this. And so our other option is we could play this Twisted Fate just so that it's developed, but they're gonna run into it, right? So we could pass till they attack and take a ton of damage, but then we might get burned out. So yeah, we think we just have to sacrifice Fizz here. I think Fizz is the odd card out. We want to save 1 Mind Meld since we don't have a good way to gain health, and we missed the damage. If we had 2 Burbles sitting on the board and we'd had done 6 damage to them last round like we were supposed to, I think that's a completely different story. But unfortunately, we did not. So here we try to take the open attack. I expect them to have something here though, but I'd rather have them use it on the Burble than our follow-up Twisted Fate.
Pride was my end, as it will be yours.
Now, where was I?
So at 2 mana, Twisted Fate should be safe here. Now it's just a question of, I think we want to at least get the blue card. This cycles itself. Gives us spell mana back, and then we can decide from there.
Blue as the serpentine.
Because if we get like a Mystic Shot or something, that clears that out, but we did not, and we also just didn't find any burst spells, which is a wee bit problematic. Yeah, that misplay might have actually just straight up boned me. This is a nice top deck for keeping the Burble pressure. And we also have the
It's just waiting to be found.
zaps here. Because really, we just need to get to, I think, Mind Meld territory. So they're going to iterative our zap.
Soak it in.
I think we're gonna iterative our own Burble here. Second beam is unfortunate for us. Really unfortunate for us.
I'm a people person.
All right, so we're just gonna have to trust the process here. We lose TF,
Gotta go with the flow.
but we can zap, can Burble.
Danger pays. Disintegrate.
Fine with taking the 5 and going to 8 here. I think that's fine. It's actually kind of tempting to double parlay them here just to get them low, but I think we're just going to open with a Mind Meld this next round. course, I say open, but what I really mean is make some Poros. They only have 3 cards in hand. We know they have the 1 zap, but we just want to make sure that we can go wide enough. So if we can do this and then have Mind Meld and still have enough for the 2 parlays. So there's their other elusive, but now they've used their mana. So we go for the Mind Meld here. And that should be game. So I made some mistakes this game, and I fully admit it. This was not a great game. This was not well executed, but I should still end up with a win. And again, that is a triumph of this deck and not of me and my decision making. Too much talking, not enough paying attention, but we win. Our tournament is still alive. A gauntlet run, I guess, is not really a tournament, but our gauntlet run's still alive, and we're going to be going up against the boss. So it's a make or break moment ahead of us. Well, gang, it all comes down to this, the final battle. Now, I said once before that I think this is the real measuring stick for your lineup, is whether or not you can make it here, because this is a bit of a coin toss usually. By the time you get here, you're usually against other quality players, and it really just kind of comes down to, you know, can you catch a break? Now, that's not to say that good players are not still winning these consistently. I'm just saying that even good players, let's say astounding win rates of something like, you know, 65-70%, that still means that 3 out of 10 times you're going to lose. So I think making it here consistently is the important piece. Done that now 3 gauntlets in a row, 1-1. So hopefully we'll get a win here. And enough talking. Let's just get into it. Let's dive in and see what kind of nightmare lineup we have to choose a ban from. And it is exactly what you would expect. Pretty meta, with the exception of this Fiora Aphelios list. But we have standard Tiafiz, Nightmare Freljord. But considering our bad matchups are sometimes Fiora and or sometimes Targon, I think that this is the must ban. It's entirely possible this list is entirely ban bait for them, but we're going to take that out of the equation. And unfortunately, they got rid of the list that we're most comfortable piloting into TF Fizz, and I also really like it in this matchup. So now it's just a matter of what do we want to pilot into these. And I think we're just going to roll the dice with TF Fizz. I know that you guys don't really want to see it, but change my mind. I was going to say, I know you guys really don't want to see it, but I didn't want to roll that list into Freljord. So at the last moment, we switched. I like the Sharp Sight keep and the 1-drop keep, but we want to throw the rest back because we need bodies. We've already played against a Lissandra list once, and I had talked about how you really need your high health units to win this matchup, and just like last time, we're not finding them yet. So this is, I think, going to come down to whether or not we can find our units like Shen, for example.
Still see far and clear.
I am one with
So we're gonna take 2 damage here. But they developed that, and they still have Avalanche available here as well, which is a bit of a bummer. But
my shield is yours.
if they Avalanche, we have this protecting the 1, and then we can Sharp Sight here. They do not
Trespass here.
Avalanche. So now this is a bit of an issue because we'd like to keep these alive. I also would like to nuke their Lissandra. So I guess we do this, and then whichever one Lissandra blocks is the one that we Sharp Sight, I guess. But
Foolish child.
they properly diagnose that we would like to keep this one alive. Just like that, we are not in a great spot.
Light the signal fires.
Just like that, we're not in a great spot. They could drop a Ravine or an Avalanche next round, and then we just have no juice. So Fiora helps, but if they pass here, we likely also have to pass. And then if we develop Fiora this next round, they're just going to play a Trundle. So
Intruders!
we just do this to try to get our free damage in. There's the Trundle, like clockwork. And this is tough because these all die pretty horrifically to an avalanche or a ravine, so you kind of want to develop Fiora, but you really want to get River Shaper up and running, because we would like to thin our deck out as far as spells go so we can draw more units. I think we're going to do this.
The land and give it life.
We can always play Fiora next round as well. So at 9, I mean, if they run it, they could even drop something like Ruination here, but they Catalyst. It's not a great sign for us. That means they're probably trying to ramp toward their combo.
I long for a worthy opponent.
So we play Fiora. I was gonna say I wouldn't be shocked if they pass. And so now the issue is we would love to play Aegis here, but if we play Aegis and then they turn around and they Avalanche, that's a bad time for us. And so we're gonna do something like this instead for now. Pray that they're not sitting on something like double Ice Shard.
Nature blesses her followers.
Because we just need to push damage. It's not quite lethal, but we're gonna do this and they're gonna do the pillar shenanigans.
Can't handle a little cold. One troll to rule 'em all.
And so now this is a moment where we'd love to play something like Aegis, for example. But then we don't have the mana for a deny to back it up. If we pass here, there's a strong likelihood that they also pass and then go into like Watcher shenanigans. I'm trying to think about how we want to navigate this properly. I think we pass because if they play a Matron, then we could respond with an Aegis. They'll obliterate our deck, but we might be able to get them on a counter attack. So there's the Matron. They've made their Watcher.
Embrace the
So we can play Bright Steel and Aegis, but we have to be able to kill this Lysandra. But we can do that because it's ephemeral, so once a strike occurs, that gets rid of that. So I think we
I've got your back.
do something like this. At 3 mana, we don't have to worry about avalanche stuff, but Ice Shard is still potentially an issue.
Nature blesses her followers.
All right, so we need this pulling this first. Just no question. We want River Shaper pulling on this.
Honor guide me.
So we go like that. And pray that this is enough. Because right now this should be lethal, but they could have a flash freeze effect, though most of these lists run 3 sisters instead of straight flash freeze, so they depend on that 4 mana position. So an Ice Shard is still not enough, and this is going to be a victory. We are going to win our 7th game of the Gauntlet, we are going to earn that prime glory because again, she goes bye-bye being ephemeral, no longer tough, and we get it done. That is the epic conclusion of the run, and I just wanted to do something different. As I know, you know, if you watch my content, you do that kind of stuff, you know that I do stuff on the ladder a lot, and I haven't really done stuff for gauntlets. And so I guess I would say, if you are still watching this somehow, some way, I would love to hear from you. Do you want to see more like gauntlet style content when these roll around, or just mix them in? You know, maybe not every gauntlet, but here and there. I felt like this was a good time to cover it because let's be honest, there's not a lot of like new builds or brews to try out. We're kind of hitting that lull as far as the creativity goes. That's not to say I don't have some creative decks. They're just all garbage. So I also will likely post some videos soon of just straight garbage. But I just felt like this would be a nice way to still, you know, showcase another side of the game. So let me know what you think. If you made it this far, if you're listening to my rants, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching. If you watched all of the videos, then you are a saint. And if you're new for whatever reason and you're still listening to me talk, then, you know, consider subscribing, all that jazz. But I love you all. Thanks for watching. And until next time, may you walk on warm sands.